Hi, class. One of my favorite rap artists is Tupac Shakur. Tupac was a famous rap artist during the 90s who was surrounded by controversy most of his life. But what I remember most, one time I read an interview and Tupac said that when he makes a rap album, he's got to train his mind. He trains himself to constantly be in character. And Tupac's approach to making rap albums is similar to my approach to open communication and overcoming communication barriers. During communication, we take on roles like myself. I'm a father, husband, dad, and at work I'm a leader, I'm a trainer, supervisor. These things are roles that constantly change throughout my day. And over the next few minutes, I would like to share the key to becoming a more open communicator and overcoming some of these communication barriers with other cultures. First of all, in order to become a more open communicator, we must learn to forget all the stereotypes and prejudices that we have towards others. So, stereotypes and prejudices create barriers. We may not be aware of them at times, but they do. One thing I remember a lot growing up, that I lived in the inner city, and there was all kinds of people around me, white, Hispanic, blacks, and a few Asians. And I remember that we were surrounded by cliques of some sort. So everybody kind of hung on with their own people. This created barriers. We couldn't communicate with each other during class as well as we could during recess, or vice versa. These barriers, because we hung out with who we were like the most, created these barriers. The first thing I suggest is to eliminate that barrier. Take away the stereotypes and the prejudices and try to overcome those things by practicing more. Practice communicating with other cultures and other people who are not like you. The more you practice communicating and interacting with others, the better you will be at overcoming these things. You don't necessarily have to be a basketball player or take on the role of a basketball player to have a meaningful conversation with Michael Jordan. And you don't necessarily have to put on the chef's hat to speak with somebody who's working in the kitchen. What I'm trying to say is we must eliminate the barriers that we see just because the guy's working in the kitchen, he's just a cook. You don't know much about that fella. He could be a good basketball player. Recently, I spoke with a friend who said all Muslims are full of hate. Immediately identified that he had this stereotype. The stereotype was going to get in the way of him having a meaningful conversation or possibly getting to know somebody who was Muslim because he thinks they're full of hate. Also, one other thing I'd like to mention about open communication is you have to put on your listening ears. Even though we eliminate the stereotypes and we get rid of all the things that we might have against another race, color, person, gender, that if we don't listen, practice active listening, then we're never going to be able to see their point. So, there's another tool that I'd like to talk a little bit about that a friend of mine used. A friend of mine is a very successful businessman. He's about 6'4", very tall, muscular. He's a black guy, and if you looked at him, you can probably develop 3 or 4 different stereotypes by not knowing much about him. He dresses like a basketball player, all the time in basketball shorts, tennis shoes, tank top. So you would think he's an athlete if you looked at him. And speaking to him, he has a lot of athlete type movements, and he is very trendy when it comes to the way he dresses. Then again, when you catch him in his business attire, you probably wouldn't think he's a ball player. Anyways, the story I'm getting to is he believes a lot in stereotypes. He's an advocate for his culture and his people and being fair to others. So when somebody puts a pin on him as a stereotype, oh, he's a basketball player, or he is not this or that, he acts like a different person. For instance, one time somebody thought he was a music artist because he looks like a music artist. He had hip-hop attire on and he looked like a cool guy. And they asked him, hey, are you a rapper? And he said, yes, I am. And then after speaking to the person in about 3 or 4 minutes, he changed the role on him quickly. He told him that he was actually just a businessman and he owned a successful landscaping company. and it was hilarious. The person started laughing, and then they were able to communicate a lot more openly. This role playing he did actually eliminated that barrier of who they thought they were, and the other person wasn't being as genuine as they really would have been. So, speaking to other cultures is important to know a little bit about them. Educate yourselves with who you're talking to, and not only who you're talking to, what they do. Not everybody's going to like vanilla ice cream. Not everybody's going to enjoy hot sauce on their food like me. Some people are very different. Take your time and learn a little bit about a person and their culture before you interact with them. This will help overcome any kind of barrier, especially during communication, when you two are trying to talk to each other. During my 7th grade year, I had a crush on a girl, and I was so nervous around her. I was never able to speak with her to being my natural self. I knew that immediately. One day I would have to find a girlfriend, and I'd have to practice more interacting with girls, gender roles. So eventually I became pretty good at speaking with people of the opposite sex at a very young age. So, we must change who we are. We must know who we are. We must know who others are. We must play roles and do these type of things in order to break down some of these barriers. As I bring this to an end, I'd like to remind you what Tupac said, training yourself to constantly change roles. And when speaking with other cultures, the more you practice communicating with people, the more effective you will be. I'll talk to you later, class. Bye.